Hello, everyone. It's March 18th. It's a Wednesday. It's sunny outside. You can see the sun on my face. Today, I went to read you a favorite book of my childhood. This is The Wuggie Norple Story by Daniel Pinkwater and with pictures by Tomie dePaola. And you can tell that this book has been around a while because it has uh, my my name written inside in my handwriting. So here's the Wuggie Norple story. In a little house in a little village not far away from Thunderbolt City lived a whistle fixer named Lunchbox Louie. He had a wife named Bigfoot the Chipmunk and a little son named King Waffle. Every day, Lunchbox Louie would kiss Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle and walk to his shop in Thunderbolt City. Bigfoot the Chipmunk would wave goodbye to Lunchbox Louie until he was out of sight. Then she would sweep the floors, make the beds, and chop up onions for supper. King Waffle would sit in the backyard, hitting a big rock with a little hammer. Onions for supper. Do you have onions for supper in your house? Some days King Waffle would walk with his mother, Bigfoot the Chipmunk, through the streets of the little village and out into the fields. Some days they would walk all the way to a little lake called Nosewort Pond. Bigfoot the Chipmunk would bring some food in a basket, and she and King Waffle would sit beside Nosewort Pond, eating a picnic lunch and playing with the wild caterpillars that lived there. In the evening, Lunchbox Louie would come home from Thunderbolt City. Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle would be waiting in the doorway when he came up the road. Lunchbox Louie would always bring something from the city for Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle. Sometimes he would bring a coconut. Sometimes he would bring a pair of eyeglasses made out of candy. Once he brought a rubber turtle that danced on a string. Bigfoot the Chipmunk would fry up the onions she had chopped that morning. After supper, the family would sit outside the house, and Lunchbox Louie would play tunes on a whistle he had made from a carrot. That sounds pretty cool. Do you see him playing with the carrot right there? One evening, when Lunchbox Louie came back from Thunderbolt City, he had a special present for King Waffle. It was a little orange kitten. King Waffle named the kitten Wuggie Norple. Can you say Wuggie Norple? There's Wuggie Norple right there. The next morning, when Lunchbox Louie had left for his shop in Thunderbolt City and Bigfoot the Chipmunk had waved goodbye until he was out of sight, and after Bigfoot the Chipmunk had swept the floors and made the beds and chopped up the onions for supper, King Waffle sat in the sun in the backyard, hitting the big rock with his little hammer, and Wuggie Norple pounced on his feet and played with his toes. Do you see him playing with his toes right there? When Lunchbox Louie came home that night, he noticed something. He noticed that Wuggie Norple was a bigger kitten than she had been the day before. "She's as big as a bulldog," Lunchbox Louie said. "She doesn't seem any bigger to me," Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. "Maybe you're still getting used to her." What do you think? Does Wuggie Norple seem bigger to you? Do you think that Wuggie Norple has gotten bigger? Do you agree with Louie? Or do you agree with Bigfoot the Chipmunk? The next day, when Lunchbox Louie was about to leave to walk to his shop in Thunderbolt City just before he kissed Bigfoot the Chipmunk goodbye, He looked at the cat, Wuggie Norple. He thought Wuggie Norple was a bigger cat than she had been the night before. It seems to me that she is just a little bigger than a bulldog, Lunchbox Louie said. She seems the same size as before to me, Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. Maybe you're not used to seeing her in the sunshine. Lunchbox Louie walked away from the little house slowly. He walked away from the little village slowly. He walked toward Thunderbolt City slowly. He was thinking about Wuggie Norple, the orange cat, and how she seemed just a little bigger than a bulldog. What do you think Louie's gonna do? Let's find out. When Lunchbox Louie came home from Thunderbolt City that night, he had something under his arm. Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle could see it a long way off. It was something big and white. When Lunchbox Louie got closer, they could see that it was a bulldog. Lunchbox Louie put the bulldog down next to Wuggie Norple. This is Freckle-Faced Chili Bean, Lunchbox Louie said. As you can see, Freckle-Faced Chili Bean is a bulldog, and as you can see, Wuggie Norple is just a little bigger than he is. I hope you're satisfied. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see. Who do you think is bigger? Is it Wuggie Norple or is it Freckle-Faced Chili Bean, the bulldog? Who's bigger? I can't actually tell who's bigger, but maybe you can tell. I think Freckle-Faced Chili Bean is a little bit bigger than Wuggie Norple, Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. They look about the same size to me, King Waffle said. Wuggie Norple growled at Freckle-Faced Chili Bean, and Freckle-Faced Chili Bean ran and hid under the sofa. The next morning, when Lunchbox Louie was about to leave for his shop in Thunderbolt City, he said, Wuggie Norple has grown during the night. Now anybody can see that she is bigger than Freckle-Faced Chili Bean. In fact, she is almost as big as a 6-year-old razorback hog. That's a kind of pig. It does seem to me that Wuggie Norple is a tiny bit bigger than Freckle-Faced Chili Bean, Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. But she is nowhere near as big as a 6-year-old razorback hog, King Waffle said. What do you think? How much bigger is Wuggie Norple than Freckle-Faced Chili Bean? I'm sorry I was covering King Waffle's face. There's a lot of pictures in this book. Lunchbox Louie walked away from his little house slowly. He was thinking about Wuggie Norple, about how she was almost as big as a 6-year-old razorback hog. During the day, Wuggie Norple made friends with Freckle-Faced Chili Bean, and they chased each other around the big rock while King Waffle sat hitting it with his little hammer. What do you think Lunchbox Louie is going to do? The last time he mentioned that Wuggie Norple was almost as big as an animal, as big as a bulldog, he brought home a bulldog. Now he's thinking about how Wuggie Norple is the same size as a razorback hog. He wouldn't bring a pig home, would he? Cats and dogs make sense as pets. Do you think he'd bring a pig home? That night, when Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle and Wuggie Norple and Freckle-Faced Chili Bean went to the door to wait for Lunchbox Louie to arrive home from Thunderbolt City, they could see that he was carrying something very heavy. He was walking slowly and stopping to rest every few steps. When he got closer, they saw he was carrying a big hog. This is Paper Cup Mixmaster, Lunchbox Louie said. As you can see, Paper Cup Mixmaster is a 6-year-old razorback hog, and as you can see, Wuggie Norple is almost as big as he is. Oh, Wuggie Norple isn't that big, Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. Wuggie Norple isn't even half as big, King Waffle said. What do you think? Is Wuggie Norple as big as the 6-year-old razorback hog? Who's the biggest? Who's the smallest here? The next morning, Lunchbox Louie said, "Look, Wuggie Norple is bigger than Paper Cup Mixmaster." "Well, almost as big," Bigfoot the Chipmunk said. "Maybe a tiny bit bigger," King Waffle said. "Bigger!" Lunchbox Louie shouted. "Bigger, bigger, bigger! She's as big as a young horse!" Lunchbox Louie walked slowly away from the little house. All right, let's look at the animals and how they grew in the night. Do you think Wuggie Norple is bigger than Paper Cup Mixmaster? I think Wuggie Norple is bigger than Paper Cup Mixmaster. During the day, King Waffle helped his mother Bigfoot the Chipmunk build a pen for Paper Cup Mixmaster. That night, when Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle and Wuggie Norple and Freckle-Faced Chilibean and Paper Cup Mixmaster went to the door to wait for Lunchbox Louie to come home from Thunderbolt City, they saw that he was carrying something very big and very heavy. "This is exploding Pop-Tart," Lunchbox Louie said. "As you can see, exploding Pop-Tart is a young horse. And as you can see, Wuggie Norple is every bit as big as exploding Pop-Tart. I hope you are satisfied." "Nonsense," said Bigfoot the Chipmunk. "A cat can't be as big as a young horse." "Wuggie Norple isn't anywhere near as big as exploding Pop-Tart," King Waffle said. All right. It's hard with the shadow. Sorry, guys. Do you think Wuggie Norple is as big as exploding Pop-Tart? Who's bigger? It's hard to tell. The next morning, Lunchbox Louie said, "As I live and breathe, Wuggie Norple has gotten even bigger. She's even bigger than exploding Pop-Tart." "Not at all," said Bigfoot the Chipmunk. "Not at all," said King Waffle. "Not at all?" shouted Lunchbox Louie. "She's as big as an elephant. You'll see." Uh-oh. Where's Lunchbox Louie gonna find an elephant? Who's the biggest? Is exploding Pop-Tart biggest or is Wuggie Norple biggest? I know who I think is biggest. It's Wuggie Norple. During the day, King Waffle rode exploding Pop-Tart around the backyard. Paper Cup Mixmaster snuffled and grunted in his pen, and Freckle-Faced Chilibean and Wuggie Norple chased each other around the house. In the evening, when Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle and Wuggie Norple and Freckle-Faced Chilibean and Paper Cup Mixmaster and Exploding Pop-Tart went to the door to wait for Lunchbox Louie, they saw that he was carrying something very, very big and very gray. "This is Laughing Gas Alligator," said Lunchbox Louie, who was all out of breath. "As you can see, Laughing Gas Alligator is an Indian elephant, and as you can see, Wuggie Norple the cat is just exactly the same size as the elephant." "You know, actually, they do seem to be about the same size," said Bigfoot the Chipmunk. "They are exactly the same size," said King Waffle. "Well, finally," Lunchbox Louie said. "I think they're the same size." The next day was Saturday, and Lunchbox Louie didn't have to work. So he took Bigfoot the Chipmunk and King Waffle and Wuggie Norple and Freckle-Faced Chilibean and Paper Cup Mixmaster and Exploding Pop-Tart and Laughing Gas Alligator and a big basket of lunch, and they all went to Nosewort Pond for a picnic. The end. What do you think? Who is right? Do you think Lunchbox Louie knew how big the animals were all the time? Was his family not listening? Or was he exaggerating sometimes? Do you know what exaggerating means? Usually, when I talk about exaggerating, I mean, I say I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, when all it means is I really just want to have my snack. It's hard to say what was going on in this book. I like the names in this book too. I think they're pretty goofy.